I'm thrilled that you're joining me here. My name is Marilyn Evans. I'm the founder of Parents Aware and host of the Media Savvy Moms podcast, the podcast that is leading the conversation about parenting and pornography today. If you're a longtime listener to the podcast, then you've heard me use the term family power meeting before. To be honest, it is one of the most effective tools a family can use to foster better, more open communication while strengthening family bonds. And you know that we are all about open, honest communication here at Parents Aware, Media Savvy Moms. But the family power meeting is more than that. I think that it is an energy booster, a problem solver, a solution generator, and overall crisis control mitigator. Basically, for me, this is the communication workhorse. And if that sounds way too amazing, you're just going to have to deal with it because I believe it's all that and more. If you can't tell, I couldn't give the family power meeting enough accolades. What I really want is for you to reap the benefits of it by implementing it into your own parenting routine, which is why I am now going to apologize because we are in season 3 of the Media Savvy Moms podcast, and to date, I have not discussed in depth this fantastic communication tool that we use all over the place here at Parents Aware. I know you've heard me talk about family power meetings in previous podcasts, and it's the foundation for several of our downloadable PDFs, including the very popular Quick Guide to Safer Screen Habits, which, by the way, if you haven't already got a hold of, be sure to access it through the link in today's show notes. I will be sure to put it there. As I said, I've never done a full episode devoted exclusively to the family power meeting. So today, I'm going to back up the cart and break it down step by step. But as I was preparing for this, I realized I've got a lot to talk about. So instead of doing one episode devoted to the family power meeting, I'm going to do 2 episodes back to back. So you'll get the first part this week, tune in next week for the next part. And I'm sure, I have a feeling that as time goes on, we're going to come back to this topic. So overall, over the next 2 episodes, I'm going to talk about what the family power meeting is. Why do I put those particular words together? Like, why is it power? Why meeting? Doesn't that sound a little too business-like? But I'm going to explain why it's not and why those things are useful. And then in the next episode, I'm going to talk about when to call a family power meeting. Is this something that is scheduled and on the calendar, or is it spontaneous and called as needed? And then most importantly, in the next episode, I'm going to talk about how to have a successful power meeting where everyone feels that they've got something out of it and they won't run away screaming next time you suggest having another one. So today we're going to talk about what is a family power meeting. And for me, family power meeting is what I turn to when I feel as a parent that our family is stuck, like really stuck on an issue. We're in a rut. There's a problem or concern out there that just needs to be resolved. But I've also used it to lift one member of the family who's feeling challenged or in need of extra support. So it works for the whole family, and it works to solve problems on an individual level. In fact, I've used it many times. It's kind of countless how many times that I've used it because I personally am struggling and I need my family to help me get out of a slump. And I'm going to talk about that exact scenario today. So the basic concept is this. Instead of having mom and or dad, the executive branch of the family, taking on all the responsibility and trying to solve family problems and issues on their own, which, let's be honest, often backfires. And, we think we know the best solution, but our kids aren't going to respond to what we think they should do. The family power meeting uses the collective creativity of all family members to come up with a solution together. Now, if you've never done this before, if you've never called a family power meeting, you might be thinking, no way. This isn't going to work for our family. You don't understand us, Marilyn. We just don't get along that way. But I'm telling you, you would be surprised at what happens when you ask your kids for their opinions. Because while the problem is being solved, while that is the main purpose for the meeting, what's really happening is that every member of the family is learning how important their opinions are and how valued and trusted their thoughts are by the whole family. So the family power meeting is about meeting those basic human needs that we all have, the need to be seen, to be heard, and to be loved. That's the concept on paper, but I think it's best to explain it with an example of how we use the family power meeting in our home just this week. So I'm recording this after we've had a long weekend in February. On Tuesday, it felt like life was moving along pretty well. In fact, I would say we almost felt back to normal by today's standards. Our kids had returned to in-person learning, so that was pretty exciting. They had been home for a long period due to the increased COVID restrictions. I know you are all familiar with those. My husband and I seemed to be more relaxed in control with our work. I had a hugely stressful week the week before. He's still at home, but he's learning how to, teach online a little differently and not go completely overboard with the preparation, which had been putting a lot of stress on all of us adapting. And I know this is not new to any of you. So also to add to the feeling on Tuesday, we'd had a lovely snowfall overnight. So the world was looking beautiful, but it wasn't so much snow that it was causing, any problems. Everything was running well. Cars could get out. The heat was on. In other words, we had nothing to complain about, which is why by the end of the day, it was surprising that we all snapped at each other. And when I say all, I mean mom and dad were full on involved in this. So we did smooth things over and basically went to bed smiling and content, no hard feelings. But I ended up having a terrible night's sleep. And I don't know if it was related to the emotions and the snapping and all of that, or if it was just coincidence. But I felt really yucky the next day when I woke up, like groggy, fog, just black. And I'm thinking that some of you can relate to this, but I got myself into a negative thought pattern. So, the argument that happened or the grumpiness that happened yesterday, I thought that had been resolved, but my mind was going into places and I was letting it get there. Everything felt hard, like the work that I didn't like. I don't want to open my work. I don't want to work on a podcast today. I don't want to deal with my family. I don't want to deal with the dishes in the sink. Like, do they have to show up over and over again? Everything just felt a little extra. And I was spiraling downwards instead of coping and getting out of it. So I called a family power meeting. And what I love most about the family power meeting is that it helps me and everyone remember that we're on the same team. So all those negative thoughts that were creeping in and making me feel alone and isolated, I knew that the family power meeting was going to bring a reality check into play. So as the title implies, like, why family power meeting? It is for the whole family. That means if you've got little ones at home, it includes little ones. That means if you're a single parent with one child, then it will be just the two of you. Usually the meeting is for everyone that's currently living at home and under the same roof, but there could be exceptions. Like you could include adult children who are away at college or married for specific issues, or sometimes you might want to include grandparents in the family power meeting. It really just depends on the circumstance. So what about the word power? Now, this is not to be confused with power struggles, unless you do have a 3-year-old. There could be a little bit of that going on. And it's not to be confused with mom or dad or Lord Business wielding all the power. In fact, it's complete opposite of that. This is about getting kids involved. I know lots of people talk about family meetings or family councils, but I like to use the word power because to me, it speaks to the energy that can be harnessed as we work together as a family. There is real power in the family. And because we've got all these minds coming together, a synergy occurs. That means that the whole, whatever you come up with, is going to be greater than what you could do individually. You know, even if you put all those individual components together, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. So simply put, we are better, stronger, and smarter when we solve problems as a family. Power is also an acronym that can help the meeting stay focused. P is for purpose and keeping the conversation on point. Oh my gosh, I just heard myself and I feel like I'm reading from a children's picture book here. Maybe I'll have to create that for this. That would be fun. Okay, so for us this time, the purpose was to acknowledge how we were feeling, that winter fatigue, that COVID fatigue, and help us to reset emotionally. So the next letter is O. O is for outcomes. I really think I have to make this book now. I just keep hearing it. So knowing what you hope to achieve gets the creativity flowing in that direction. It helps you know what questions to ask. So if you don't know what outcomes you want to have, then how do you know where to start? So as parents, you are moderating the discussion. You're not taking over, but you are moderating it. And those first two letters, they're really all on you. So, for example, this time I wanted to know how we could make the most of what was left of winter. We were feeling it. We were feeling that cabin fever, and spring is just around the corner. And so I suppose we could just hold out, but, what could we do to make it more fun? That was the outcome that I was hoping for. How could we get excited for spring and not be like, oh my gosh, spring is here. How did winter just come and go like that? So that's our outcome. Then W is for win-win. This time together is about listening. As I said already, parents are moderating the discussion, but full on listening. Everyone should feel like they are being heard, even when compromises have to be made. And I get that some issues that you're going to bring up at a family power meeting are going to be more emotionally charged than others. Our example of a family power meeting this week wasn't really emotionally charged. We were there to support one another, as you should always be. But it can be tempting to want to lecture, especially if you can see things that, your kids are doing and you're like, oh, I I just can see where that's going. But if you resist the urge to lecture, use a talking stick if necessary, you will be amazed at the incredible problem-solving power that kids have. They're very creative. We want to tap into that creativity. And if they become part of the solution, they are more likely to stick to it. They're more likely to have buy-in. Hence, it is a win-win. I'm telling you, people, this works. So to help us get out of the stuck-at-home routine, everyone put their ideas out on the table. For example, one of my sons talked about going on a hike with another family. And I talked about planning a small getaway, maybe an overnighter. And my husband suggested, well, maybe we could make it into a day trip because we're still very restricted by our COVID regulations. But we got thinking creatively and a little outside of the box. And when one person made a suggestion, that prompted another person to come up with an idea. So it really works well when we are working together. So E, the next letter in the acronym, E is for engagement, and you want to consider ways to engage all members of the family in the meeting. So if you've got little ones, maybe they are drawing pictures so that they always feel that they're participating. They're still contributing their thoughts and ideas, but how do you think of ways to keep them engaged throughout the meeting? So even though I called this particular family power meeting because I was feeling overwhelmed, I wanted to know how everyone else was doing. And what I found out is that I wasn't the only person that was feeling overwhelmed. When we each took turns expressing things that we really missed doing this winter, and I had my boys go first, I was honestly a little heartbroken, quite heartbroken to hear what they had sacrificed and what they had given up on, like the sports that they love to do. They don't get to be with their friends, and it has an impact on them. And hearing what they were dealing with also made me so proud of them for being such troopers and really not complaining through this whole pandemic. They have been awesome. So to make sure that they knew we heard what they had to say, we actually wrote a few of their comments down on our chalkboard. But I love using a chalkboard or big notepad. You want to see visually what you're expressing verbally. So we each mentioned one or two things that we were also enjoying. For example, the boys and I have been watching a couple shows together regularly, and we have, as a family, we've all been watching WandaVision as it comes out every Sunday night, and this has been fun. And I know that, a TV show, whoop-de-doo, what's the big deal? But we have found real enjoyment in that family time together through COVID. So I think taking time to express both the disappointments and the joys were really healing for the whole family. And the final letter in the acronym is R for resolutions. So you want to make resolutions together. You want to write those down, and you want to have you don't want to have all this great creativity flowing and then not put it to good use. So who's responsible for what? When are these resolutions going to be worked on? How will we have some sort of accountability? And that just entirely depends on the subject matter. So for example, my husband is looking into some of the COVID regulations. Can we gather with another family? Where could we go on an overnight? I'm going to look into that. And if we can't do that, where can we go on a day trip? So somebody has to take care of that. So before we left the meeting, we wanted to know what our plans were and who would arrange what and the timelines to get it done. At this point, you might be thinking, whoa, that sounds way too structured and business-like. But I want you to keep in mind that POWER, the acronym, is mostly to help you as a parent mentally prepare for the meeting and to facilitate the meeting. If you have these things in mind, you're going to stay more focused and more on track. So my challenge for you this week is to consider a problem or an issue that you think would work well to have the family solve that problem. So you can write it down. You can go full on and give this a try if you'd like, or you can wait next week until I come back and talk about when to call a family power meeting and how to have a really successful power meeting. But if you're familiar with this concept already and you feel like you've got a good grounding, by all means, go ahead and have your family power meeting. I'd love to hear how it goes. Send me a message and take care. Thank you again for joining the conversation. If you'd like more information about what was discussed in this episode, visit our detailed show notes at parentsaware.info. And if you simply want to follow us on social media, we are at Media Savvy Moms on Instagram and parentsaware /Media Savvy Moms podcast on Facebook. Until next time, keep talking.